Welcome to the second week of the Young Politicians Convention. We're now going to start our meeting. As you may well know, today is week 2, session 1, and the topic this week is that of the conflict in Israel and Palestine that has been unfolding these past days, and it's soon going to be over 10 days. So I'm basically going to give you a brief overview of today's session. We're going to watch a recap video of the conflict, of the history, its causes, how it is that we got to the conflict today. And afterwards, we're going to open the floor, and all of you are going to be able to express your opinions, perspectives, anything you have to say with regard to the conflict, and we'll be discussing. And afterwards, my friend and I cannot see her at the moment, but we're basically going to be asking open-ended questions in order to foster dialogue and communication between both sides. And hopefully by the end of the session, we'll understand a lot more about Israel and Palestine. And at the same time, perhaps we'll reach common ground between both sides. So without further ado, Kevin, you can present the video. Share your screen.
Yeah, so as always, a video will be played to summarize and recap the event or incident. The video is a bit old, from 7 years ago by Vox, because some recent ones I found are a bit biased and not sophisticated enough to present the whole picture of relations. So without further ado, let's play the video.
Palestine conflict is that it's been going on for centuries, all about ancient religious hatreds. In fact, while religion is involved, conflict's mostly about two groups of people who claim the same land, and it really only goes back about a century to the early 1900s. Around then, the region along the eastern Mediterranean we now call Israel-Palestine, been under Ottoman rule for centuries, was religiously diverse, including mostly Muslims and Christians, also a small number of Jews who lived generally in peace. It was changing in two important ways. First, more people in the region were developing a sense of being not just ethnic Arabs, but Palestinians, a distinct national identity. At the same time, not so far away in Europe, more Jews were joining a movement called Zionism, which said that Judaism was not just a religion, but a nationality, one that deserved a nation of its own. And after centuries of persecution, many believed a Jewish state was their only way of safety and saw their historic homeland in the Middle East as their best hope for establishing it. In the first decades of the 20th century, tens of thousands of European Jews moved there. After World War I, the Ottoman Empire collapsed, and British and French empires carved up the Middle East, the British taking control of a region it called the British Mandate for Palestine. At first, the British allowed Jewish immigration. But as more Jews arrived, settling into farming communities, tension between Jews and Arabs grew. Both sides committed acts of violence, and by the 1930s, the British began limiting Jewish immigration. In response, Jewish militias formed to fight both the local Arabs and to resist British rule. Then came the Holocaust, leading many more Jews to flee Europe for British Palestine and galvanizing much of the world in support of a Jewish state. In 1947, as sectarian violence between Jews and Arabs there grew, the United Nations approved a plan to divide British Palestine into two separate states. One for Jews, Israel, and one for Arabs, Palestine. The city of Jerusalem, where Jews, Muslims, and Christians all have holy sites, was to become a special international zone. The plan was meant to give Jews a state, to establish Palestinian independence, and to end the sectarian violence that the British could no longer control. The Jews accepted the plan, and they declared independence as Israel. But Arabs throughout the region saw the UN plan as just more European colonialism trying to steal their land. Many of the Arab states, who had just recently won independence themselves, declared war on Israel in an effort to establish a unified Arab Palestine where all of British Palestine had been. The new state of Israel won the war. But in the process, they pushed well past their borders under the UN plan, taking the western half of Jerusalem and much of the land that was to have been part of Palestine. They also expelled huge numbers of Palestinians from their homes, creating a massive refugee population whose descendants today number about 7 million. At the end of the war, Israel controlled all of the territory except for Gaza, which Egypt controlled, and the West Bank, named because it's west of the Jordan River, which Jordan controlled. This was the beginning of the decades-long Arab-Israeli conflict. During this period, many Jews in Arab-majority countries fled or were expelled, arriving in Israel. Then something happened that transformed the conflict. In 1967, Israel and the neighboring Arab states fought another war. When it ended, Israel had seized the Golan Heights from Syria, the West Bank from Jordan, and both Gaza and the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt. Israel was now occupying the Palestinian territories, including all of Jerusalem and its holy sites. This left Israel responsible for governing the Palestinians, a people it had fought for decades. In 1978, Israel and Egypt signed the U.S.-brokered Camp David Accords. Shortly after that, Israel gave Sinai back to Egypt as part of the peace treaty. At the time, this was hugely controversial in the Arab world. Egyptian President Anwar Sadat was assassinated in part because of outrage against it. But it marked the beginning of the end of the wider Arab-Israeli conflict. Over the next few decades, the other Arab states gradually made peace with Israel, even if they never signed formal peace treaties. But Israel's military was still occupying the Palestinian territories of the West Bank and Gaza, and this is when the conflict became an Israeli-Palestinian struggle. The Palestinian Liberation Organization, which had formed in the 1960s to seek a Palestinian state, fought against Israel, including through acts of terrorism. Initially, the PLO claimed all of what had been British Palestine, meaning it wanted to end the state of Israel entirely. Fighting between Israel and the PLO went on for years, even including a 1982 Israeli invasion of Lebanon to kick the group out of Beirut.
The stillness of the ceasefire in southern Lebanon was shattered today by the sound of guns, bombs, and flames.
The PLO later said it would accept dividing the land between Israel and Palestine, but the conflict continued. As all of this was happening, something dramatic was changing in the Israel-occupied Palestinian territories. Israelis were moving in. These people are called settlers, and they made their homes in the West Bank and Gaza, whether Palestinians wanted them or not. Some moved for religious reasons, some because they want to claim the land for Israel, some just because housing is cheap, often subsidized by the Israeli government. Some settlements are cities with thousands of people, others are small communities deep into the West Bank.
If you've always felt a deep yearning for Jerusalem, now is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, not only to stand within its gates, but also to build the home of your dreams there.
Settlers are followed by soldiers to guard them, and the growing settlements force Palestinians off of their land and divide communities. Short-term, they make the occupation much more painful for Palestinians. Long-term, by dividing up Palestinian land, they make it much more difficult for the Palestinians to ever have an independent state. Today, there are several 100,000 settlers in occupied territory, even though the international community considers them illegal. By the late 1980s, Palestinian frustration exploded into the Intifada, which is the Arabic word for uprising. It began with mostly protests and boycotts, but soon became violent. Israel responded with heavy force. A couple hundred Israelis, over 1,000 Palestinians died in the First Intifada. Around the same time, a group of Palestinians in Gaza, considered the PLO too secular, too compromise-minded, created Hamas, a violent extremist group dedicated to Israel's destruction. By the early 1990s, it's clear that Israelis and Palestinians have to make peace. The leaders from both sides signed the Oslo Accords. This is meant to be the big first step toward Israel maybe someday withdrawing from the Palestinian territories and allowing an independent Palestine. The Oslo Accords established the Palestinian Authority, allowing Palestinians a little bit of freedom to govern themselves in certain areas. Hardliners on both sides opposed the Oslo Accords. Members of Hamas launched suicide bombings to try to sabotage the process. The Israeli right protests peace talks with ralliers calling Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin a traitor and a Nazi. Not long after Rabin signs the second round of Oslo Accords, a far-right Israeli shoots him to death in Tel Aviv. This violence showed how extremists on both sides can use violence to derail peace, keep a permanent conflict going as they seek the other side's total destruction. That's a dynamic that's been around ever since. Negotiations meant to hammer out the final details on peace drag on for years, and a big Camp David summit in 2000 comes up empty. Palestinians come to believe peace isn't coming, rise up in a second intifada, this one much more violent than the first. By the time it wound down a few years later, about 1,000 Israelis and 3,200 Palestinians had died. The second intifada really changes the conflict. Israelis become much more skeptical that Palestinians will ever accept peace or that it's even worth trying. Israeli politics shift right, the country builds walls and checkpoints to control Palestinians' movements. They're not really trying to solve the conflict anymore, just manage it. The Palestinians are left feeling like negotiating didn't work and violence didn't work, and that they're stuck under an ever-growing occupation with no future as a people. That year, Israel withdraws from Gaza. Hamas gains power, but splits from the Palestinian Authority in a short civil war, dividing Gaza from the West Bank. Israel puts Gaza under a suffocating blockade, and unemployment rises to 40%. This is the state of the conflict as we know it today. It's relatively new, and it's unbearable for Palestinians. In the West Bank, more and more settlements are smothering Palestinians, often respond with protests and sometimes with violence, though most just want normal lives. In Gaza, Hamas and other violent groups have periodic wars with Israel. The fighting overwhelmingly kills Palestinians, including lots of civilians. In Israel itself, most people have become apathetic. For the most part, the occupation keeps the conflict relatively removed from their daily lives, with moments of brief but horrible violence. There's little political will for peace. No one really knows where the conflict goes from here. Maybe a third intifada, maybe the Palestinian Authority collapses. But everyone agrees that things as they are now can't last much longer. Israel's occupation of the Palestinians is too unstable to last, and that unless something dramatic changes, whatever comes next will be much worse.
So, having watched the video, thank you, Kevin. The floor is now open to receive initial opinions and thoughts on the conflict. So, whoever wants to speak, you can raise your hand with that button. Well, with a button, yeah. And you can express your opinion, and there's going to be an order. So, I'm going to be the moderator here today, and I'm going to be saying who is going to speak when. So, yeah, Samia, you can start.
Well, I wanted to express, of course, this conflict has many reasons. There's many people that are responsible for the deaths, for the innocent people that are dying right now, right? But I would like to say that I am supporting Palestine. That doesn't mean that I'm supporting Hamas. I really want to clear that out. I know that everything that is happening is not right, but I just want to clear that out, that I'm not supporting Hamas itself, just Palestine, right? Imagine you have a house, right, that you pay for, and not renting, you pay for, right? And then suddenly people come in and then they try to get this place from you when you're the one paying. Of course, it's really unfair for you because you are paying, right? This is the situation we are in if we relate this to the situation we have with Israel and Palestine. Palestine is way older than Israel. And what Israel is doing right now is occupying the space that is meant to be for Palestinians. Of course, many people say, well, Hamas did this, Hamas did that. Those are all fake news. Of course, social media, every single part, media is beside Israel, showing how people are getting brainwashed every single second. Now that this conflict is being known by a greater audience, this is showing how people are being brainwashed and how people are just supporting Israel without actually knowing what Palestine has been going through for years and years. And to add up to that, okay, fine. It is true Hamas attacked first in this situation, but I feel like Hamas does have the right to attack because at this point here, Jewish people are, well, Israel in itself are trying to attack what it's not theirs. Imagine you in Jewish people when in the World War II, right? They had a problem with the Germans, right? With Hitler and stuff. Imagine you are being kind as accepting Jewish immigrants to your country, and at the end what they do is try to conquer what is yours, and then at the end the worst part is that you're getting up no that you're getting called terrorist for acting up for what is yours. I, as a Muslim, I do not feel like that's a really good idea because, of course, we all have human rights. It doesn't matter what happened to the government. What is ours. And that doesn't mean that. And also, another thing I wanted to add up is okay, this is not a war. I mean, it's a genocide. It's not a war because not both sides have military services. There's Israel people shooting with guns, having a strong military service, while Palestinians citizens are throwing rocks at Israelis. What is that going to do with anything? Nothing. It's not going to do nothing. Why? Because of course they don't have any. They don't have electricity. They don't have food. They don't have water. They don't have anything. They cut out everything in Gaza. What is that going to do? Anything. Israel through white phosphorus, which is illegal and is a chemical substance that can affect a lot onto Palestinians, knowing that they don't have military service. If you at the end say that Palestinians are terrorists and what they're doing is wrong, then I don't know what you call Israel people. Seriously, like my point of view, I will repeat it again. I'm not with what Hamas is doing, but I feel like citizens like this shouldn't suffer food shortage, water shortage, when they know that all this is happening. Children are dying by seconds. It's not something that we should joke about. There's lives actually being in a dangerous situation, and I feel like that's just not right.
Okay, thank you for your opinion. Just to clarify, we evidently want to make sure that all comments are respectful and there's no hate or any kind of thing, because this is a controversial topic and we're controversial. Politics are controversial. So let's just try to make sure to maintain a respectful tone and participate in this discussion. Elena, your turn.
Okay, so I think we can like all agree that it really depends where you stand in. Biases are going to be there, but I'm going to have to agree with Samia and side with Palestine, since like currently we can tell that both of them are like attacking each other in like brutal ways, but since like now they're like sort of like equal in some way because they're both attacking each other, we should go to the history, and in the history we can see that it was first declared like from the UN that each of them have their own separate like places, but then Israel, like from the war that they fought with other states, not with Palestine, they just decided to also bring Palestine to this war and take their territory. So this is completely against like the basic forms of sovereignty. It's against those people, like Samia said, which are living there and they're suddenly getting occupied. There's no legal basis, there's nothing, no contract, which is actually obliging these people to hand their homes, hand their lives to these people who just decide to occupy out of nowhere. And since like that's my point of view from like what I've like heard of like the history, and then if we get that information and put it to like now, like to the current conflict, we can see how like Israel is also doing lots of unnecessary things to like keep this occupied land. For example, the like shortages they're doing, they're also limiting people from like going to places and building up walls. Like that has no military reason. It's not like there's no like strategic military reason to like cut the people from getting food and like essentials, which is what it said in the BBC, like that they were cutting them from essentials. So I just think that's like gonna essentially hurt the people which are innocent, because if you were actually trying to do a military strategy, you wouldn't go for the water, you wouldn't go for the food, you wouldn't go to those people that already don't have anything, and you're gonna take like their houses which are already built. So yeah, that's like my main opinion.
Okay, thank you. Viva, your turn. Viva, are you here? Or
Sorry.
okay, oh good.
Okay, sorry. I'm just gonna repeat that. Essentially, I'm gonna just say that I'm for Israel in this, I believe, or I'm siding with Israel. And I'd first like to call a couple things out, and then I'd like to just rebuttal things that have been said. Number one, sorry, 2 seconds. Number one, the article that was like given to us is a little bit incorrect in the sense that there's just a couple discrepancies with the information with the numbers that I'd like to just call out, as well as the videos. And that's all I wanted to say with that. Now, with the actual thing, with the actual conflict, I would like to point out that I agree with what Samia said in the sense that Hamas is at fault. Hamas is the terrorist group that is at fault for this. And I'd also like to call out that Israel, depending on the time frame we're talking about, Israel's not the one that started the fight with the Arab states. And the Arab states, including Palestine, are the ones that decided to start the war, the one, not the current one, but from a while ago. And they were the ones that decided to attack. As well as that, someone, I don't remember who, sorry, someone said that Israel is not providing any food, water, and they're without water and food and essentials. But there is actually a source, I can pull that source for you in a second, that says that 1.1 trillion of gas money, food, essentials, and everything of that was transported in many trucks from Israel to Palestine and over the border. So in reality, that point is kind of false, as they were providing goods, and they have been providing goods, which is what I'd like to bring up, that Israel has been providing everything for Gaza. Over the last years, they've spent hundreds of thousands and hundreds of thousands over them. Like, because of them, they have put in money for the education system, for everything. And really what they've been doing is they've been, instead of using the money for a good point, they have been putting them into bombs and rockets to then the terrorist group again have been putting this money into attacking Israel, who is basically giving them their money. It's like the saying, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. They're feeding them, yet they're biting them back. And my last point that I'd like to make is that I'd like to bring up that Israel has ordered over 1 million Palestine civilians, like not Hamas, to evacuate ahead of them like attacking. And I think that is a huge point in this. Again, with what Samia mentioned, the social media aspect of this, and of course, this is a huge publicized event, but the Hamas and the other government-related things that are for the Hamas group, they are basically using the innocent civilians of Palestine as a human shield, as well as using it as propaganda. They have been saying just want to rack up the deaths, rack up the evidence that they are that they are in the right and Israel is in the wrong. Again, I want to restate the fact that I am just solely saying this towards the Hamas and not towards Palestine in general.
Okay, because we're running kind of like short on time, we're gonna try to keep like these statements a little, shorter, make them a little shorter. Yeah, it's completely fine to all the people who have already spoken, but just try to like make them a little more concise. Okay, next is Sandro. Also, I'd like to ask all of you, or the majority of you, to like switch your cameras on, please, just to like make this a little more engaging.
Oh, it's very dark in my room. You won't be able to see anything.
In that case, it's fine.
All right, thank you. All right, first of all, thank you for letting me be here, Mr. Albert. First of all, I want to start from I think this war is unnecessary in my opinion, but I still have to take the side of Israel. My 2 cousins are fighting in this war currently. Third one maybe this week. I don't know. They keep me updated throughout this war all the time, and it's pretty hard for them because they're in the south currently. And I want to go back to the statement that Viva made about that Israel said to 1.1 million people that Israel said to Palestinians that they should go to the south, and the Qatari media, it was Qatari, of course, Arabic people were not supporting this, and they said that Israel bombed the road which was the safe route where they were supposed to leave from. They even posted a video, but in the actual video, you don't even see a bomb or even a rocket falling. It explodes instantly, and it was probably, which I heard from many sources and even my relatives who live there, it might have been Hamas, which exported a dangerous material, or it was just the Qatari media who were spreading fake news and stuff. And that's the end of that thing. I want to also say about Israel conquesting Palestine. Everyone has a little information about this, about Israel and Palestine, about Israel trying to conquest Palestine. Israel, I don't want to make this very mean in such way, but Israel doesn't really need Palestine. And since the actions that they have done, that Hamas has done since Saturday last week, have shown why this is why Israel doesn't need Palestine in a way, or why it doesn't need Hamas leading the country or being the number one terrorist group in the whole state of Palestine. I think that Hamas is doing a very bad thing, cutting off babies' heads, murdering Holocaust survivors, or also other things which can be named, but I don't want to spend time on that. And Israel, I want to say that Israel has its right to defend itself in any way, because of any country has its right to defend itself if it gets attacked, and try to find peace in any way. Yeah, I think that's it. But yeah, that's it. I think. I don't know if what I said is bad in any way. I don't mean
That's good.
to
That's good.
hurt anyone's feelings in this. Yeah.
You're good. Okay, so thank you for your contribution. Now, Mark was next on the list.
Right. Thank you. I'm gonna try to keep it more brief since you said we're running a bit short on time. I think I'm probably more on the side of Israel, but I will admit I do personally think Palestine should have land to itself, but I do also think that so should Israel. And the main argument that I want to make is just a little bit to Samia and to mostly Samia, yeah, because she mentioned that Palestinians were defending their land, and whilst that's partially true, I just want to say that there have been two instances where Israel has offered Palestine its independence. Once in 1967, I can't recall where the other, the year of the other one. And both times, Palestine, or well, with the influence of the Arab world, has rejected, mainly because they prefer to just have everything, as they cannot fathom giving any land to the Jews. And I'd just like to say that probably when you have rejected your independence twice in a way that would have been peaceful, to then say that you're defending your land and committing the horrible acts that the Hamas is undeniably convincing. It's not fake news. There's Telegram channels, there's Twitter. There is overwhelming amounts of evidence to the acts that they've been committing. So, yeah, I just don't think that it's fair to say that they're just defending their land. And on the subject of Israel cutting off essentials, Israel threw, I believe, over 3 million pamphlets to the West Bank and Gaza to try and get the peaceful civilians who are completely innocent to evacuate. But sadly, the Hamas decided to cut off their only routes to evacuation. And again, there is overwhelming amounts of evidence. It can't really be argued that that was the Jewish army or the IDF. That's really all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to just put a point out there that maybe perhaps the Palestinians did not want to did not abide by the accords set in the various meetings they had because of Israeli settlements that were occupying the Palestinian land that was offered to them. I'm just putting it out there in order to like give some food for thought. Next on the list is Etienne.
All right, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
All
you.
right, okay, good. So I don't know if mine is going to be brief, but I'll be quick. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, the people are the ones who are suffering from this war, the ones who only seek to live a peaceful life with their family. Yet, they have to face death and displacement. What did they do wrong to deserve this? Come on. More than 3,500 people have been killed in the conflict, with Israel accounting for 1,300 and Gaza accounting for at least 2,215, and more than 420,000 Palestinians have been internally displaced in October 2023. So it's a recent news. During the dozens of clashes between the Israeli military and Palestinian armed groups, according to the official website of Amnesty International. For this reason, I'm standing in between this war, standing on the side of the people, the civilians who are dying from this injustice of unresolved conflict from two parties. However, based on history, as Elena explained, I'm slightly more on the side of Palestinians, particularly since, according to Amnesty International, once again, has accused Israel of committing the crime of apartheid. The definition, if you don't know, is exploitation of the labor of the members of a racial group, in particular by submitting them to forced labor. And in the report, it concluded that the Israeli government has demonstrated an intent to maintain the domination of Jewish Israelis over Palestinians across Israel. Moreover, from a recent video I personally seen, is that an Israeli policeman was attacking with no justified reason to a Palestinian dad with his son walking peacefully in the streets. Can you believe that? All right, I'm done.
Thank you, Etienne. Next on the list is Samia. You can answer. Keep it concise, though.
Okay.
Everyone in general.
I would like to mention some points that have been mentioned throughout the whole conference, right? I really want to start with Viva. I do agree that she said about 1.1 like essentials being given to Palestine, but I feel like that's the least they can do. Because like after every single year they have been attacking Palestine, I feel like that's the least they can do is given essentials. Because okay, those essentials don't make up for the deaths they have created during the past few years. It's not only this current conflict. There's been many years that that Israel has been attacking Palestine. And another thing I would like to say, when Sandro mentioned that Israel doesn't need Palestine. Okay, maybe that's true, but what about if Israel doesn't need Palestine, what is the point of fighting and what is the point of creating this conflict without a reason? If the whole point is just creating conflict because it's fun, well, I don't see why there should be a conflict. Okay, he mentioned that currently Hamas attacked. That's why Israel attacked back. Well, but if we talk about the history of Palestine and Israel, of their conflicts and stuff, we could also mention that Israel did sometimes start the conflict with Palestine. So I feel like it is true that this conflict is not acceptable, but I completely disagree with with Sandro, because the fact that he said Israel doesn't need Palestine, I feel like that point is just completely unacceptable and like not okay. Because then what is the whole point of creating this conflict, right? So yes, that's my whole point. Thank you.
Thank you, Samia. Next is Ilya. You got the floor.
Hi guys. I would just want to bring up the idea that I believe that the both wars that are going on right now are both planned. So let's think from this side that the special military operation in Ukraine right now it's basically dividing two parts of the world. The USA supporting Ukraine and the whole Europe and Asia, most of the Asia, let's say China and I'm not talking about Japan, but still supporting Russia. Somehow they're being friends at least. And in the Israeli war, also the world is spread in two parts. So there's NATO countries and the BRICS, which are basically interacting together not in a really friendly manner. And I will just want to mention that these two wars are planned by someone in order to divide the world in two parts. And basically, they want people to argue. They want to make people choose sides. Therefore, I would like to say that I'm not picking sides in any of the wars, and I prefer that everyone stays in the middle between the two positions. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks. Kevin, you're next.
Okay, guys, I want to mention that the series of conflict is a cumulative term that have accumulated over centuries that right now is meeting a break-even point because many countries reported they have many protests supporting Palestine, even opening protests that supports Gaza. And many countries, there were assassination to Jewish as a very unprovoked event. I don't think that's like the anti-Semitism, but it's only an anti-Islam Israel, especially for that country, because people aren't happy of what Israel and the Middle East policies, because between Palestine and Israel, the Palestinians' rights were not executed and nor respected by Israel, because Israel promised Palestine that they will be back to their land after several days, but that haven't been true since now. And after that, an estimated about 3.5 million refugees have fled from Palestine because of Israel's suppress. And additional to that, that the place in Palestine, I mean that part, is become like a big prison. People's basic needs are not met, and their unemployment was skyrocket high. So I think that Israel is responsible for that because they were not taking actions, or even though they took action, Israel wasn't willing to negotiate more in the 1967 pact they had. So personally, I will support Palestine, and that's it.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. And now Elena. So Elena, you'll present your speech, and afterwards, I'm going to ask an open-ended question.
Okay. So, Simi, I do agree that it is the bare minimum that they give the essentials, but they're even denying that. Since actually before, like Palestine has a pipeline to get all their essentials like food, water, etc., gas. And now, since the Hamas attack, they stopped supplying. So they basically cut the pipeline. And since Viva last time was saying like there's like discrepancies about this issue, this time I come with 3 sources which approve what I just said, which are the Guardian, AP News, and BV News. And I'm telling you why these sources are good, since supposedly, as somebody mentioned, I think like the geopolitical situation, Europe is supposed to be, it's like with US and US is supporting Israel. So why would 3 European like notice or like news would go like in favor of this statement? This means that it's a fact, like it's not a biased thing. Also, I think somebody else said like that Israel yeah, they got like they didn't want to have like the independence, like they denied twice the concept of independence, but they rejected, since why would they like accept to give out land which was originally promised to them? Like it makes zero sense that they're creating a contract that is completely biased to Israel and they're supporting like the land that they got taken, and then they're just like they have to accept that they got their land like taken from them. It makes no sense since it was not a fair like contract for Palestine. So yeah.
Thank you. Isabel, we're going to let you answer, and afterwards, the open-ended question will come.
Oh, do I say something? Okay.
You raise your hand. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, my bad. Okay, basically, I've been like taking in what everyone's saying right now, and I was not sure in my position, but I think the arguments in favor of Palestine have convinced me so far. Now, I do find what Ilya said super interesting, that of course there are some interests of other countries, Europe, United States, maybe Asia, I don't know, that are like backhanded or like secret, that have caused us to divide the world. Israel or Palestine, there's like A or B, you know, so it's like the only two options that divides us a lot. Now, I love to like check motions a lot, and here the motion I believe is Israel versus Palestine. Very simple. Now, why I found this very important is because you either side with Israel or Palestine, and as Samia and other people have already mentioned, Hamas is not really equal to Palestine. So most of the arguments in favor of Israel are saying, okay, Hamas did YX, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. But their arguments are saying what Hamas did. If we look at the motion, it's Israel versus Palestine, not Israel versus Hamas. So that's the main reason I have to give it to like the Palestinians.
Okay, I think some people have their hands up. Okay, I'm just gonna introduce the question in order to really try to find some common ground. So let's focus on solutions to the conflict. The conflict has already erupted, it has already happened, it's happening at the moment, but how can we solve this? So the question that I'm launching is, do you support a single state or two-state solution? Do you support an independent Palestine and an independent Israel, or do you support a one-state solution where either Palestine governs the territory or Israel governs the territory, or both countries simultaneously govern the same territory? What are your opinions? And I'm gonna just continue with the order. Kevin, you go ahead.
Yeah, I want to add like that in the Western media, like BBC, CNC, CAN, they are not only criticizing Hamas, but they are also criticizing Israel. And countries such as United States, who have close relation with Israel, they're trying to support this kind of pro-protest leading by the people. So I think that we need to distinguish between that Israel, like is Israel actually exercising anti-terrorism, or Israel is just massacring in Palestine? And answering Albert's question, I think the most suitable solution right now is to create a two independent states between Israel and Palestine. And in the case of Hamas, I think you cannot blame Palestine for generating this. I more prefer that this is a rare residue produced by the unprovoked action of Israel.
Awesome. Okay, I'm just gonna quickly bring my point forth. So I overall agree with Kevin. However, I do disagree to the answer he gave to my question, because I believe the only solution we've got is to create a single state solution where the governing body is not Israeli or solely Palestinian. I believe it is important to have a governing body that is a mix of both, and maybe create a United States of Jerusalem where like both countries can cooperate mutually. Because let's face it, the division of two states it never worked. It didn't work in the past because the states are divided in such a way that they're going to inevitably cross into each other, both Palestinians and Israelis, and that has created conflict numerous times throughout history. So in my opinion, the only solution is to have a single state solution where both bodies govern it. Having said this, Samia, you go ahead.
Well, I totally understand both sides of like Kelvin and also Albert, but like if we think about it, which you mentioned, Albert, of like having wait, sorry, what was it again? The
A single state solution.
Yes, a single state solution. Okay, it's a good idea that both Palestine and Israel govern, but I feel like if they can't currently decide on what is right, I feel like if we do take this decision, I feel like it's gonna still be hard for them to take decisions because they won't agree into each other. Because like after this, after what is happening currently, I feel like they won't get into decisions, but I feel like what Kelvin said makes kind of sense as well, to have their own land, because at the end, the land Israel is trying to conquer is it was already given to Palestine, and they can't deny that, you know. So I feel like it would make more sense to have a separate independent countries, but I also understand Albert's point of view. So, but I kind of agree with Kelvin. Thank you.
Awesome. Also, just to reiterate really quickly, I think I did not express my point correctly. When I said under a single system, like single state government solution, what I meant is that this new authority, this new country could embrace the presidential system that exists in Switzerland, where Switzerland has four completely different cultures living in the same country, and every single canton, they're called cantons, but it's like regions, have one governing body, and afterwards they all simultaneously together govern the country of Israel. I believe that would be a really interesting political solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, where, for example, Gaza, a Palestinian majority, Arabs could govern that part of the state, and afterwards other parts of the state could be governed by Israelis, and afterwards they simultaneously reach agreements. Having said this, Mark, your turn.
Right, thank you. What I kind of want to say for the two-state solution thing, or the one-state, first, Albert, I mean, your idea is good of the one-state solution with kind of like a federal division where one side it's the Arabic or the Palestinian governing, and one side is the Israelites. But the problem with that is due to the extremism that exists on both sides, that would just never work. Like, I don't think that would ever be feasible in our world, quite sadly, even though that would probably be the most ideal utopian solution. I think the two-state solution probably would be the best for our world right now to maintain peace. Just have the Palestinians govern in Palestine, have the Israelis govern in Israel. Sure, if we want to get peace, that's the only right solution. The only problem is, again, because of the extremism that exists on both sides, that would also be hard to achieve. Any peace really there is hard to achieve. But I'd say my main argument for the two-state solution is that at least, unlike if they were
Mark,
united, as we've already kind of tried that, where they're united.
Yeah, you're cutting down like
And it didn't really work. And even if we use the
okay, I think there's some Wi-Fi problems or something, because we can't. Yeah, there's just, you're really choppy. Like we didn't hear any sentences after a certain point. But thanks for your opinion, and we can get back to you later when it gets better. In the meanwhile, Elena.
So I'm going to have to agree with like Mark that Albert's solution would be like the ideal solution, the most like politically correct per se. But bringing it back to reality, what you said about Switzerland, that it's like lots of cultures working together, the war that's like happening right now, I wouldn't say it's a culture problem. It's because both sides have done like such like grotesque things at this point of history that it's like unforgivable for like Israel and Palestine. So you can't just like forgive and forget, since there's probably gonna be a revolt, and like as Mark said, they have really extreme views, so it's gonna be really difficult to create like any political decision at all. So I will have to like agree with the people who are saying like that two independent states are the best option, and also adding to that, the independent states should be placed as how the UN decided it at first, not with the current like new territories Israel like has decided to occupy, like the thing that UN decided at first. That's like the fair thing that internationally is recognized as Israel and Palestine.
In that case, I also raised the question, what are we going to do with the Israeli settlements that are theoretically colonizing the West Bank and Gaza? Food for thought. Next is, let me see, Ilya.
Hi guys again. I would like to talk about Albert's point about the two-state solution. I would just explain my view on that, and I believe that will not work out in any way. As we all know, well, maybe some of you have heard that, Hamas currently is calling for help from the, let's call, the Muslim countries, and they're trying to bring together their religion and fight against the Israelis together. And a lot of countries right now are trying to send the troops to help Hamas. So why I believe the two-state solution would not work is because the religions that are fighting right now, it's not the war of people, it's the war of religion. And I believe that they will not live together in a friendly manner because the religions are super different, and separating both people and the religions would be the right way to solve this conflict without any more deaths, let's say. Thank you.
Just to quickly say, I disagree with your point on the separation of religions because, in fact, Jerusalem was inhabited by Muslims, Christians, and Jews at one point in time. They all were living in that city. Majorities were actually Christians and Muslims. There was a really tiny proportion of the population that was actually Jew, and they all cohabited. It was harmonious. They were fine. Yeah, just to put that out there. Next, Kevin.
Albert, sorry, but I need to disagree with your point again. So due to several reasons, first is the two ethnic groups have been clashing over decades. It will be not that easy to put them together without anything that happened before. And secondly, they have great difference in their values. Although you may mention in Jerusalem in the past, it is a very diverse place. But right now, I don't think by the support of media and other news and other ideas, people will agree on such things more easier. And so I support a two independent state because right now independent have given a special meaning for Palestinians because it is what they're seeking for decades, for a long time. And after that, I think both countries can have a great connection on education, health, technology, agriculture, or even culture or religion in general. But that will take time to establish a relationship between two sides. We cannot hurry on this because right now extremists still remain. They all have a very offensive idea to other part. So it's best we accommodate two sides first, then build off connections and relation, and finally exchange ideas or have a greater connection in the future. And and as what you mentioned, how to treat those settlements who have been putting on violence action on Palestinian. I think that will be led to the international court to judge because by local that is biased because if it's judged by Israel, they will probably prefer to have a lesser punishment for them. So it's best to let the world judge it rather than only Israel judge it. Yeah.
The world has no power. They cannot exert anything on them. Like the United Nations can't really do anything.
But still, like if like people are protesting, people are writing news about it, then I think perhaps they will get a greater punishment. But it's complex.
Okay, thank you. Also, just really quick, a common misconception is that all Palestinians are Arabs. However, in reality, there are multiple Christian communities among Palestinians. There's many Palestinians that are Christians and are actually not Muslim, and they evidently support Palestine in order to reach their independence. Just so you'll know, because I've been hearing a lot of it's Arabs versus the Jews. However, it's not really. Next, Isabel.
Okay, so I agree with what Elena said. I think there's two let's say, options that we want, and then there's other two options that are a bit more plausible but still have like some problems over there. The options that we want are two separate states, but like how Elena said, like the UN set them before, which is like more for Palestine. And then the other option is what Albert said, is that well, the Swedish government, like one state, but like in the Swedish government way, not Israel or Palestine. Now, what I believe are the most plausible options are either Israel is going to probably either get all like how it was before. I think that's more possible. I don't think that's what should happen, but that's more plausible, more probable to happen. And maybe two separate states could also be possible. But one problem that Ilya mentioned that I also think is very strong right now is that since the media and in general, everyone's dividing either Israel or Palestine, people are going to be, I don't know, they're not going to agree with each other, especially like Palestinians and also people from Israel. There might already be conflict, like it's very difficult, maybe not religious necessarily, but just because someone is like part of a different country, like they're gonna maybe have some conflicts just because of like someone's from a different country than them.
Okay, thank you. Samia?
I would like to add up with what most of us said, right? I still support the fact that we have to do two divided like independent countries, but also Ilya kind of mentioned about religion. I don't think it's a religious problem because like if we look back in history, of course Palestine are mostly Muslims, but there's also many other religions in Palestine, right? But then if it was so about religion, Palestinians wouldn't have accepted Jewish people, right? And I feel like if we look back through that, I wouldn't say it's a religious problem. It's just about the fact that they were given this land and they can't take what is theirs, and there's causing conflict in between that, right? So I feel like it's not, I wanted to add that religion is not the problem here. And Albert also mentioned that there is many other religions in Palestine, so religion doesn't even have to do with anything. Maybe it is true that there is a Muslim community that, you know, they want Palestine back and it's kind of related to Islam, but apart from that, I do not think religion should be a part of this conflict either way. But I still wanted to add to the fact that both should become independent, because as I mentioned before, if we put both countries together, I feel like even though you mentioned the example of Switzerland, they have many varieties of cultures and stuff, but I feel like this wouldn't work out. It wouldn't work out because they have two broad like super complex histories, that and the history involves them trying to conquer each other, trying to fight back one, like constantly, and even currently trying to fight back what is not theirs or what is theirs, you know. So I feel like either way, because of all this conflict, there won't be peace around citizens, because at the end, children are going to be taught this history, so the culture would never be accepted by Palestinians or Israelis. So I feel like apart from that, two independent countries would be the most let's just say advisable thing. Thank you.
Eitan?
I10 for the right. So okay, so from my opinion, although I agree more on the side of the two-state solution, uh, it appears to have like some obstacles, and I just want to add up to that. Despite this solution being the most feasible, as they have already mentioned before, and that is that there's an obstacle which, according to the website Sky News, it is that the biggest obstacle to two-state solution is deciding what the borders of a potential Palestinian state would be, since there's increasing numbers of Israeli settlements, which is connected to what Albert asked us, and that is having established inside the West Bank, which around 600,000 Israelis now are living there. And so due to this existence makes the territory increasingly difficult to designate as Palestinian, and this is one of the obstacles. And if you need the source, here it is. All right. So, yeah. Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, Elena, and after that, we're probably gonna wrap it up.
Okay, so to answer to like what Albert and Aitian said about, okay, yeah, we have two independent states, but there's people who are living inside like the Palestinian state and like stuff. So like to that happened before in like history, like before when it was like the British like territory, let's say, and it was part of the British Empire. What happened was that the Israeli people before were already coming to like Palestine and like settling down. But the problem with this was that they were settling down, and once they got like control of the land, they were kicking out the farmers that were like the Palestinian farmers that were there. So taking in account what happened before in history, well, we can create some sort of limitations in a way, because one of the rights is the freedom of movement. So we should not stop Israeli people from entering Palestine, but we should have into account the power games, and then there's not an abuse of power by the part of like the people who are like getting this territory, that they cannot kick anybody which prior to their purchase was already settled in that territory. So I think that would work out because it would keep the Israeli people there, but it would also assure that people that are like from Palestine wouldn't be kicked out of their homes.
Really brief, Samia, really brief.
It's just something to add up. I totally agree with that, and I feel like just because if they do separate each other, I feel like history is history, past is past. I feel like they should at the end get together, become peaceful, and like either way, Israel and Palestine should become friends, and like still people should like stay in contact, right? That doesn't. I hope history just explains a bit how the conflict conquered and how the decisions that are made now happen basically. But I feel like they should still keep this relationship with Palestine and Israel clear, where there's peace and citizens are not um, in danger. Thank you.
Okay, now, by show of hands, how many people support the single state system? I want to see. Click the button if you support the single state solution. Okay, only me. Okay. Okay, and Hamza. Okay, that's cool. I was asking you this because I believe there's a lot of divide between my opinion and all of all of your opinions on this specific issue. So the debate that we're going to be having on Friday on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, we're going to be basically answering the question of, should the solution to this conflict be based on a single state system, or a two-state solution? So that's going to be the debate. Evidently, there's a lot more people supporting the two-state solution. That does not mean you're going to win. So the debate is going to be on Friday, and that's going to be the question probably. Now, having said this, also I'd like to tell you that this Thursday there's going to be a guest speaker session. Katie Noyet, she's going to be presenting DHR Lindersvold. It's an organization in Denmark. There's a lot of cool programs that maybe your 11s would like to undertake because it can help you in your college applications. There's like volunteering programs, that kind of thing. And also she's going to be talking about race relations in the United States. So really interesting topic. So I really highly encourage you to join that session and make her feel at home and make her feel happy, I guess. So having said that, thank you so much for joining this session and expressing your points of view on Israel and Palestine. Also, the ones who didn't talk today, I really encourage you to participate a lot in the debate because there's going to be a lot of rebuttals. So like, be ready because it's coming. And yeah, I'm really reassured, Eitan. I'm reassured in my debating skills. Anyhow, thank you everyone, and I guess see you Thursday.